how do you hide 40,000 soldiers? Not for an hour, not for a day, for 5 weeks, marching them 250 miles through the middle of Europe, past French spies, Dutch informants, and German observers, feeding them, resting them, keeping them healthy and combat-ready, all while convincing everyone, allies and enemies alike, that you're going somewhere completely different. Impossible? The Duke of Marlborough did it in 1704. And when those 40,000 men finally appeared on the Danube River, they won a battle that saved Europe and destroyed the myth of French invincibility. This is the story of Blenheim. Blenheim wasn't won on August 13th, when the fighting started. It was won in May, when Marlborough began lying to everyone who trusted him. Welcome to Britain's history. Today we're solving a mystery. How did one British general deceive an entire continent, march an army through enemy territory undetected, and defeat a force that outnumbered him? And why did he have to lie to his own allies to do it? Let's start with the first question. And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden side of history, make sure you're subscribed. We've got dozens more battles to investigate, each one with secrets nobody talks about. Question 1. Why would Marlborough risk his career? May 17, 04. The Netherlands. Marlborough commands Allied forces fighting the French in what's now Belgium. He's won tactical victories. He's a respected general. His position is secure. Why would he throw all that away on a mission nobody authorized? The answer is Vienna. See, while Marlborough's been fighting in the Netherlands, France has been executing a completely different strategy. Louis XIV doesn't want to grind through years of inconclusive battles. He wants to win the war in one stroke. And his plan is brilliant. Knock Austria out of the war by capturing Vienna. Think about it. Austria is the Grand Alliance's foundation. If Vienna falls, the Habsburg Empire collapses. German states sue for peace. The Dutch panic and negotiate. Britain, isolated, alone against a French superpower controlling everything from Spain to Poland. By May 17, 04, Louis's plan is working perfectly. Marshal Tallard and the Elector of Bavaria have combined 60,000 men in southern Germany. They're marching on Vienna. Austrian defenses are weak. Nobody can stop them. Well, almost nobody. Marlborough sees what's happening. If Vienna falls, everything he's fought for is finished. Britain loses. France wins. Europe falls under French domination for generations. But here's Marlborough's problem. His Dutch allies won't let him leave the Netherlands. They're terrified of French attacks on their borders. They want Marlborough's army protecting them, not marching off to save Vienna. The Dutch have veto power over Allied strategy. If Marlborough asks permission to go south, they'll say no. So Marlborough doesn't ask. He lies. On May 19th, 1704, Marlborough tells his Dutch allies he's marching to the Moselle River to attack French positions. The Dutch approve. It's close enough to protect them. Marlborough tells the British government he's cooperating with German allies on the Moselle. London approves. Everyone thinks they know the plan. Nobody knows Marlborough's real destination is the Danube, 250 miles south, where he'll either save Vienna or destroy his career trying. Would you have done it? Risk everything on a mission nobody authorized. Lie to the people who trusted you. Drop your answer in the comments. Question 2. How do you march 40,000 men without anyone noticing? This is the real mystery. Marlborough's leaving the Netherlands with 40,000 soldiers, infantry, cavalry, artillery, supply wagons. It's not exactly subtle. French spies are everywhere. Dutch observers are watching. How does he keep his destination secret? The answer is genius-level logistics and deception. First, Marlborough doesn't just march. He arranges supplies in advance. Every night, his army finds food, fresh water, shelter, medical care waiting for them. His soldiers aren't foraging or looting. They're being taken care of like VIPs. Captain Robert Parker, who marched with them, wrote, "The soldiers had nothing to do but pitch their tents, boil kettles, and lie down to rest." Why does this matter? Because well-fed, rested soldiers march faster and don't cause trouble that draws attention. Second, Marlborough's route. He starts heading toward the Moselle, exactly where he told everyone he was going. French spies report, British army moving to Moselle, as expected. The Dutch see the same thing. For the first week, Marlborough's lie is reinforced by reality. Then, gradually, his route shifts south. Not obviously, just a few miles here and there. By the time anyone realizes he's not going to the Moselle anymore, he's already crossed the Rhine and entered friendly German territory. Too late to stop him. Third, speed. 40,000 men marching 250 miles in 5 weeks? That's averaging 7 miles per day with full equipment. It doesn't sound fast, but for an 18th century army with all its baggage, it's lightning quick. The French can't react because by the time they get intelligence, Marlborough's already somewhere else. June 22nd, 1704. Marlborough's army reaches the Danube. The French High Command is stunned. How did 40,000 British soldiers appear in Bavaria? They were supposed to be in the Netherlands. Marlborough's just pulled off the greatest military deception since Hannibal crossed the Alps. And he did it by lying, planning obsessively, and moving faster than anyone thought possible. But the march is just step 1. Now he has to actually fight. Question 3. Why did the French think they'd already won? August the 12th, 1704. Near the village of Blenheim, which the British call Blenheim, on the Danube, Marshal Tallard's Franco-Bavarian army makes camp. 60,000 men, strong defensive position, 3 fortified villages anchoring their line, the Nebel stream protecting their front, the Danube River guarding their right flank. Tallard looks at this position and thinks, we're safe. Why would the British attack? They're outnumbered. They'd have to cross the Nebel stream under fire, then assault uphill into fortified villages. It's suicide. Tallard expects Marlborough to probe his defenses, realize it's impossible, and withdraw. Maybe in a week, when supplies run low. That night, French officers celebrate. They drink wine. They joke about British cowardice. Some gamble on how long before Marlborough retreats. They're so confident, they don't even post adequate sentries. Meanwhile, Marlborough and Prince Eugene of Savoy, who's brought 30,000 Austrians to reinforce the Allied army, are on a hill overlooking the French position. They're not seeing an impregnable fortress. They're seeing mistakes. Mistake 1. The 3 villages, Blenheim, Oberglau, Lutzingen are separated by open ground. If you can break through that ground, you split the French army. Mistake 2. The Nebel stream is an obstacle, sure, but it's not that deep. Infantry can cross it, and once across, they're not facing fortifications. They're facing French infantry in the open. Mistake 3. Tallard's assumed the British won't attack. He's prepared for defense, not for aggressive enemy action. That assumption is about to kill him. Marlborough sees all this, and he makes a decision that will either save Europe or end his career. Attack at dawn. The French position looked unbeatable. Would you have attacked, or played it safe and waited? Let me know in the comments. Question 4. How do you trap 16,000 soldiers in one village? August 13th, 1704. Dawn. The Allied army appears in battle formation. 65,000 men, British, Austrian, Dutch, German, ready to attack. Tallard wakes up to impossible news. The British are attacking. Today. Now. Panic spreads through the French camp. Soldiers grab weapons, form ranks, rush to defensive positions. The organized defense Tallard planned? Chaos. Everyone's scrambling. Marlborough's plan is elegant. Prince Eugene will attack the French left at Lutzingen and Oberglau, pinning down Marsin and Maximilian's forces. Meanwhile, Marlborough will attack Blenheim village on the French right. But, and this is crucial, these attacks on Blenheim are feints. Marlborough doesn't actually want to capture the village. He wants the French to think he does. Why? Because if the French panic and stuff too many troops into Blenheim, defending it, they'll weaken their centre. And that's where Marlborough will strike with cavalry. It works better than Marlborough dreamed. Lord Cutts leads British infantry against Blenheim village. Wave after wave of redcoats charging fortified positions. French muskets tear them apart. Men fall screaming. Officers die leading their soldiers forward. The attacks are brutal, costly, seemingly futile. Inside Blenheim, the French commander Clérambault watches these attacks and panics. The British are throwing everything at my village. I need reinforcements. Without asking Tallard's permission, Clérambault orders his reserve battalions into Blenheim. 16,000 French infantry, nearly a third of Tallard's entire army, cram into one village. They're packed so tight, they can barely move. They couldn't even fire, let alone receive or carry out any orders, one French officer wrote later. Marlborough sees this mistake immediately. He orders Cutts, stop trying to take Blenheim, just surround it. Keep those 16,000 men trapped. 5,000 Allied soldiers now pin 16,000 French in a village. The French numerical advantage has evaporated. Tallard's centre, stripped of the troops Clérambault sent to Blenheim, faces Marlborough's full strength with just 9 infantry battalions. Tallard realizes what's happened. He's been tricked, but it's too late to fix it. The trap is already sprung. How do you trap 16,000 soldiers? You make them think they're defending something crucial. Then you ignore them while you attack somewhere else. Question 5. What happens when 8,000 cavalry hit 9 infantry battalions? 4:30 p.m. The battle's been raging for 6 hours. Eugene's forces are grinding against the French left. Cutts has Blenheim village surrounded. And in the centre, Marlborough assembles his killing blow. 80 squadrons of cavalry, 8,000 horsemen, British, German, Austrian, formed in perfect ranks, supported by infantry, facing 9 French infantry battalions and a handful of cavalry across the Nibel stream. The French soldiers in that center know what's coming. They can see the massive cavalry force forming. They know they can't stop it. But they're French regulars. They'll fight anyway. Marlborough gives the order. 8,000 cavalry surge forward. They cross the Nibel. They form up on the far side. And they charge. The 9 French battalions fire devastating volleys. Cavalry fall. Horses scream and tumble. But 8,000 against 3,000? The math is brutal. The French keep shooting. The cavalry keeps coming. When the Allied cavalry hits, the French center shatters. Infantry cannot stop massed cavalry attacking from multiple directions. The French battalions disintegrate. Some soldiers stand and die. Others break and run. Tallard tries to rally his army. He's riding among fleeing soldiers, shouting orders, desperate to restore formation. It's hopeless. The Allied cavalry has broken through. They're behind French lines. They're everywhere. The French army collapses. Units that held for hours suddenly dissolve. Soldiers throw down weapons and run toward the Danube, hoping to swim to safety. Thousands drown trying. The river runs red. Tallard himself is wounded. A musket ball grazes his head, half blinding him. He's captured by Allied soldiers who don't even recognize him at first. The commander-in-chief of France's greatest army, now a prisoner heading for England. On the French left, Marcin and Maximilian see Tallard's army disintegrating. They burn the villages of Oberglau and Lutzingen and retreat northwest with whatever troops they can save. The Franco-Bavarian army, 60,000 strong that morning, has ceased to exist. What happens when 8,000 cavalry hit 9 battalions? Annihilation. Question 6. Why did 2,000 men drown in a river? The Danube isn't a gentle stream. It's a major river. Wide, deep, fast-flowing. And on the afternoon of August 13th, 1704, it becomes a killing ground. French soldiers flee the broken center. They run toward the Danube because there's nowhere else to go. Allied cavalry is behind them. The villages are burning. The only escape is across the river. Those who can swim are wearing heavy wool uniforms, leather boots, equipment want. In the panic, nobody stops to remove armor or shed gear. They just jump into the water. Some make it. Most don't. Bodies float downstream for days afterward. Local villagers find corpses washed up on banks for miles. The water literally ran red with blood. Not metaphorically, actually red from thousands of bleeding men. Why did 2,000 men drown? Because panic makes people do desperate things. And when your army's being slaughtered, drowning seems preferable to cavalry sabres. The drownings bring French casualties to catastrophic levels. 20,000 killed or wounded, 14,000 captured, including Marshal Tallard, 2 other generals, and hundreds of officers. 129 infantry colors taken. 171 cavalry standards captured. Every gun lost. The entire camp abandoned. Allied casualties. 12,000 killed and wounded. Heavy, yes, but they held the field. They captured the enemy commander. They destroyed a French army. The casualty ratio tells the story. For every Allied soldier who died, nearly 3 French or Bavarian soldiers were killed, wounded, captured, or drowned. Question 7. How do you tell a king his army's been destroyed? Paris, August 1704. King Louis XIV, the Sun King, master of Europe, sits in Versailles waiting for news from Bavaria. He expects victory. Marshal Tallard is his finest general. The army is France's best. They outnumber the Allies. The position is strong. The news arrives. Except nobody wants to tell Louis. For days, courtiers avoid the topic. Everyone knows what happened. Rumors spread fast. But nobody wants to be the one who tells the Sun King that his invincible army has been annihilated. Finally, someone has to say it. Accounts differ on exactly how Louis learns, but his reaction is recorded. Deep depression. This is his first major defeat. The first time French military supremacy has been questioned. The end of 50 years of French dominance. Louis tries to keep it quiet, but you can't hide the loss of 34,000 men. The news spreads across Europe. French confidence never fully recovers. Meanwhile, in London, church bells ring. Bonfires blaze. Parliament is ecstatic. Queen Anne awards Marlborough the Royal Manor of Woodstock and £240,000 to build a palace worthy of his victory. That palace, Blenheim Palace, still stands. 2 centuries later, it becomes the birthplace of Winston Churchill, named after his ancestor John Churchill, Duke of Marlborough, the greatest British general of the 18th century and the greatest British leader of the 20th century, connected by blood and by a battle that saved Europe. Question 8. What mistakes did Tallard actually make? History remembers Tallard as the general who lost Blenheim. But was he incompetent? Or did Marlborough simply outplay him? Let's be fair to Tallard. He was experienced. He'd won battles before. He chose a strong defensive position. His plan, defend the villages, hold the line, wait for Marlborough to exhaust himself attacking, was textbook military doctrine. But Tallard made 3 fatal errors. Error 1. He underestimated Marlborough. Tallard assumed the British general would follow conventional wisdom, probe the defences, realize they're too strong, withdraw. He never imagined Marlborough would attack immediately despite being outnumbered. Error 2. He didn't control Clermont. When Clermont panicked and stuffed 16,000 men into Blenheim village, Tallard should have overruled him immediately. Instead, Tallard let it happen. That single mistake cost him 1/3 of his infantry. Error 3. He didn't coordinate with Marcin. Tallard's right wing and Marcin's left wing fought almost as separate armies. They didn't support each other. When Tallard's center broke, Marcin couldn't help because he was pinned down by Eugene's attacks. Compare this to Marlborough. Every decision was calculated. The feint attacks on Blenheim were designed to cause exactly the panic they caused. The timing of the cavalry charge, waiting until the French center was weakened, was perfect. The coordination with Eugene across miles of battlefield was seamless. Tallard wasn't stupid. Marlborough was just operating on a different level. What do you think were Tallard's actual mistakes? Was Marlborough simply too good? Or did Tallard lose this battle by making too many errors? Did the British win it? Or did the French throw it away? Let me know your verdict in the comments. Question 9. Why does Blenheim matter? 320 years later. Blenheim was 3 centuries ago. Why should anyone care now? Because Blenheim established a pattern that would define European history for the next 200 years. Before Blenheim, France dominated Europe. French armies were considered invincible. French culture, French language, French power. Everyone assumed France would rule the continent. After Blenheim, that assumption died. A British general had destroyed France's finest army. British tactics, British discipline, British generalship had proven superior. The balance of power shifted. Marlborough won more battles. Ramillies in 1706, Oudenarde in 1708, Malplaquet in 1709. Each victory reinforced the lesson. France could be beaten. By 1713, France was contained. Britain emerged as Europe's power broker. But those are stories for another day. Stories that we will be investigating in detail in upcoming episodes. Subscribe and don't miss them. But more than that, Blenheim created a precedent. Britain standing against continental tyranny. Britain as the power that prevents any one nation from dominating Europe. That pattern repeats at Waterloo in 1815. Britain defeats Napoleon's attempt to dominate Europe. It repeats in World War I and World War II. Britain stands against Germany's attempts at European hegemony. Every time a continental power tries to dominate Europe, Britain shows up and says no. That tradition starts at Blenheim. Why does Blenheim matter? Because it's the moment Britain proved it could save Europe, and then kept doing it for the next 3 centuries. Question 10. What would have happened if Marlborough had lost? Final question. The biggest one. May 17, 04. Marlborough's lying to his allies, marching into enemy territory, risking his entire career on one battle. What if he'd lost? Vienna falls. Austria collapses. The Grand Alliance disintegrates. Louis XIV becomes master of Europe, controlling everything from Spain to Poland. Britain faces a French superpower alone. The War of Spanish Succession ends in French victory. France and Spain unite under Bourbon rule. The massive combined resources of both empires, European territories, American colonies, global trade, concentrate under one crown. Britain, isolated, blockaded, probably forced to accept humiliating peace terms. The Royal Navy prevents actual invasion, but Britain becomes a second-tier power watching French domination from the sidelines. No British Empire, no Pax Britannica, no industrial revolution led by Britain. World history looks completely different. That's what Marlborough prevented. Not just a military defeat, but a completely different trajectory for Western civilization. One man, one march, one battle. Everything changed because a 54-year-old general decided rules didn't apply when Europe's fate was at stake. That's the final answer to our mystery. How did Marlborough win Blenheim? He lied when necessary, planned obsessively, moved faster than anyone thought possible, and understood that sometimes saving the world requires breaking every rule. If this mystery approach to history got you thinking differently about battles, if you've realized that military history isn't just dates and tactics, it's decisions, deceptions, and desperate gambles, then you know what to do. What other battles hide mysteries we should investigate? What other generals pulled off impossible victories through genius-level deception? Drop your suggestions below. Thank you for watching Britain's History, where we don't just tell you what happened, we show you how it happened and why it mattered.